Yep, I hear something.
There we go.
All right, we're live and we're live.
Yes, we are live.
All right, so I call to order a regular meeting of the City of Helotes Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors. It is Wednesday, May the 18th, 2022, and it is now approximately 7:06. Just for the record, we have all board of directors present except for one, which is Melody Pope. So we do have quorum. So we'll start the meeting with an open session for any citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens signed up to be heard?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, with that, we will close the open session and we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda items. So all consent agenda items listed below are considered routine by EDC staff and are intended to be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the director requests it, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. So on the consent agenda, as I understand it, if you've got any simple questions that you have on them, any corrections you need to make to the minutes, or anything simple that you need to ask on questions to staff on the other items, we could do it at a time. So I'm going to start, just a quick question to our interim director. Glenn, just a quick breakdown on our current budget as far as revenue and what was budgeted and what is actual. Can you give us just a quick rundown on where we stand on that?
Absolutely. So you're probably wondering why the sales tax is higher year to date than what we initially had budgeted. The one issue we're going to have is that we receive the revenues from the 380 agreement from BMC Millwork, and we don't remit those till the end of the quarter.
Okay.
Some of that will drop again once the next payment comes out. So that's going to be a lot of that difference.
Okay.
I think we just turned it in on Monday,
With 600.
Yeah.
100,000.
Well, okay, so it'd be good to revisit this maybe in more detail when we get to the end of the quarter. Okay, and just on the expenditure side, is that, where do we stand on that as well?
All the line items, we're actually right on track
Okay,
with where we projected at this point. So in total, we're looking at 68% of funds spent. We're over halfway through the year, so.
okay. So it sounds like, from the budget side, it sounds like we're tracking correctly. Do we have, anybody else have any questions on it?
I don't have any questions on the item 4, but item 5, when the appropriate time is, I'm not sure what that is, but if we could have the other investment options that we have, maybe the CDs or whichever, brought to us kind of as a review item that we can look at what options that we might have to do with those funds, especially I think CD rates are changing with the interest environment that's changing. So love to see what other options we might have.
Yeah, and Tabby's been looking at that because she did notice everything else is staying low. CDs are kind of going back up. So that would be something. If we do it from a bank that we are not, which is not our depository, then we'll have to do a special agreement with that bank. So it can be done. It's been done with other cities, and that's something that Tabby is looking at now.
Okay.
It looks like Frost is who we have our checking. Would that be one that we have a relationship with already? Okay.
Okay. So all good thoughts, and obviously I think when we get to that point, our finance committee definitely would be something we'd want them to look at. So if there's no further questions, then we'll go ahead and we'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve items 3 through 4 of the consent agenda.
We got 5.
I'm sorry, 3 through 5.
Okay.
I looked at 4 and said 4.
It's very good. Okay, and we got a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, so consent agenda passes. So now we're going to move on to committee reports. So this is something new that's in our agenda, as anybody that was listening in or here for our last EDC meeting last month. We actually created 3 new committees, the executive, the finance, and the governance committee. And those committees have met, some of them more than once. And so what we're going to be doing is providing an update of those meetings as we go through on a monthly basis. So I'm going to start with the executive committee. The executive committee is myself, John Kordowski, and Melody Pope. And I think, Glenn, you attend almost all the committee meetings.
Yes, sir.
If not all. So Glenn was at our executive committees. We had 2 committee meetings this past, since our last month. You know, some of the first meetings, obviously, when you're setting up a new committee like this, it's kind of feeling out of like, okay, what are we doing? What are we here for? What's our mission? I know we have the resolutions that give us guidance on it, but we all need to talk individually about really what is our purpose going to be. So some of the big things that we had in the executive committee was setting up, on our side, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but our side, we had the qualification side of it.
Correct.
For the executive director position. And so we have created those qualifications for executive director position. And now this is going to be a question of staff and to Marion and Glenn. Whenever one committee comes up with, okay, we've got this item that we've created as a committee, do those need to go to the board for approval, or is it the committee has the power to say this is what we're going to do?
That will be determined when you set up your policies and procedures.
Okay.
So your policies and procedures is where you should set up what should come, or if a committee can, example, do like your travel policy and so forth.
Right.
So because you didn't have that set up, that's why you're bringing it to the board. But if once you set up your policies and procedures, that will determine by whatever y'all want it to be. If you are comfortable for the committees to do it and approve it, you know, and that's fine. That's why you set up those committees, because it's really hard sometimes to meet all as one and wait for a meeting. That can be done. Or if there's a certain particular ones that you want the full board to actually
Approve.
vote on.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I think I like, is the flexibility in it. I think there are some minor items that all the committees with their expertise can decide, all right, this is a good move for the board. But if there's items that you feel like, well, this is what we feel as us 3, but maybe we need to get everybody's input in, I'd love to be able to have the ability to do that. So that's kind of how I feel with the qualification side. It is something I would like to bring to the board as a whole, just to make sure we're all on the same page as far as what those qualifications could be for that executive director position. We are wanting to implement and put out the job search as soon as possible on that. So this is going to tie into something that I want to bring up later, is like, I think we're at the point that we need to have a good work session between all of us. I think that'd be a good opportunity for us to sit down and look at those. And I think the sooner the better. So I'm going to task Glenn with getting everybody's schedules within I would say the next 3 weeks for us to sit down for a work session, so we can sit down and look at these qualifications and make sure everybody's on the same page of what we're putting out there for our director. Other than that, on the executive committee side, there was really just talks about understanding the new directives from council and trying to figure out how we're going to integrate that with our current strategic plan. So I think those are also items that we all need to talk about as a board. And again, I think a work session would be the appropriate mechanism for us to sit down and talk openly about those directives and then how we're going to implement them into what our plan that we've already got in place, so that we can make sure that we're kind of coming to a good middle road with what they want. Not what they want, but what the directive of the council is, and then what we've got set forth in front of us as far as a strategic plan. So work session, again, I think is the best mechanism that we can use to do this. John, anything you want to add from the executive committee meetings?
No, I think, we spent quite a bit of time over 2 sessions getting everything organized and put together. And I am looking forward in this next kind of space we have between the next meeting. I'd at least like for the executive committee to get started on policies and procedures. There's a lot to unpack there, so the chances of us having it done and bringing it back to the whole board, 50-50, if I'm being positive about it, but there's a lot to unpack and get done, but we're willing to tackle that. And I certainly think that that's absolutely one of the things that the executive committee is going to need to bring to the board for approval, so.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now we'll go to the update on the finance committee. Not to lean on you again, John, but yeah, why don't you kind of give an update on that? And then, of course, anybody from finance committee wants to add anything, feel free to do that.
Absolutely. Finance committee met twice for a few hours. Glenn was there helping us, of course, since he's on all the committees, and we spent quite a bit of time in person and on email, and going back and forth to get the 3 policies kind of squared away on the purchasing, credit card, and travel policy. We felt like those were very important as we're transitioning to autonomy here, to get those organized so that we could essentially keep the business running, for lack of a better term. And we used existing city policies as a template and then modified for what we felt was appropriate for the board. So I am looking for any and all feedback on any of those policies, and if there's anything that the board, we're coming up on that one as our next agenda item, and I encourage you to fill that in too, and we're looking for suggestions. So from the finance committee standpoint, that's the biggest thing we're working on right now, is getting those hammered out. And then once we get the policies and procedures in order, I think the finance committee will have more work to do, kind of branching off of those, so.
And as John said, this is a later item on the agenda, but they are presented there under tab number 8, if you haven't been familiarized with them. But they're coming up right next, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at them. So we'll go ahead and move into item number 8. And so items for individual consideration. This is where we can take action, we can discuss and take action on, or it could just be discussion. But the idea is that we're going to discuss and take action. So once I take a motion, the motion is going to be for discussion and the action that you want to happen. And so that one motion then will move from the discussion phase into the approval or disapproval stage, depending on what the motion was. So do I have a motion for discussion and action on amending the HEDC policies and procedures to include purchasing policy, credit card policy, and travel policy?
I will motion to discuss and take appropriate action on item number 8 as.
Okay, yeah, and I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, but it says his motion for action, does it have to be an action of like amending, like we're going to do this, and then the vote later will be yes or no?
If you want it to be as written, I mean, that's the way you're saying it,
Yeah.
as written.
Okay.
The way it's written. as
Okay,
is.
So
okay,
if we get a second on that, and then you later want to amend what's written, then we'll do another motion to amend.
Amend.
okay. All right, so we have a motion for discussion action on amending the HEDC policies and procedures to include those items that I enumerated. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and second. So that opens up our discussion phase here. And I always move from right to left. So Jeff, any thoughts that you have on those policies?
No, I didn't, there's nothing in there that didn't look appropriate to me.
Okay. Greg?
I feel like all the guidelines are pretty straightforward.
Okay.
The same.
Okay. John, you wrote them, so I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I agree with him. Yeah.
I'll take them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did, John was nice enough to send me an early draft of these, and we did have some, just some minor items, but yeah, as they're written now is what I think are very appropriate. Again, they're following city policies, just some minor edits that we have in there that's, namely just changes in positions that are associated with it. So I think they're very well as written.
And I will add, I don't mean to take it away from you, Joel, yet. I like the little table in there, kind of blocking out who does what. That's very helpful. We really tried to streamline the process for simplicity. We are trying to set future generations of EDC up for success. So I do like the way that we were organized. That was Glenn that was kind enough to throw that little box together, because even as I was typing this out, I was getting a little cross-eyed. You know, just keep it all straight, admittedly. So thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, I will definitely say I work better off tables than anything else.
Yeah, that was hugely helpful.
Joel?
I too was on the finance committee, so I was in those meetings where we went through this. I'll echo what John said, that the table does definitely help make it apparent what we're doing there with that. And, you know, we still made sure that we had the checks and balances throughout all this, like the city policies did, but it did streamline it to help us be able to do business quicker and make it simpler for everybody involved. But yeah, I agree with what we have put here.
Okay, very good. And I just want to throw in there, I just want to thank you all for y'all's time in doing that. I know it's not easy. And I know it takes time, so I appreciate it all. So with that, so with no further discussion, we already have the motion for action on amending the HEDC policies for those 3 items. So
The only thing I'd like to input is that I was telling Glenn that if you do pass it as is, if we could come back as a consent with a resolution, because there should have been a resolution attached to these so that we keep track of it. So anytime that a board or a committee or whatever adopts any of this, a resolution should be attached. So you can adopt it now and we'll make it, and then we'll do an amendment
Resolution.
just to attach a resolution.
Okay, yeah.
That's more for housekeeping, tracking, and so forth.
right, so
Having to look over minutes and figure out when that got approved.
I got you. Okay, thank you very much for that, Marianne. Always appreciated your expertise in the rules and the right way to do things, because we definitely want it to be easily tracked and for people to understand whenever these got enacted. So, so I do agree with your idea that we bring this back to the next meeting with a resolution attached. But for now, we have a discussion action on amending HTC policies for the purchasing policy, credit card policy, and travel policy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. So the ayes have it and the motion passes. All right. So with that, that's the only item that we have on individual consideration. So at this time, we are going to go into closed session. So closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, and 551.074, personnel matters. In addition to the matters listed below, any matter scheduled for open session may be discussed in closed session as appropriate and authorized by law. So we will be going into closed session for those 2 items. It is now, I have 7:25, and we are now going into closed session. Okay, very good. So we are now out of our closed session and we're opening back up an open session, and it is 8:30 PM. So with that, we're now going to move into an item for individual consideration, discussion, and action on approving job qualifications and salary range for the position of Executive Director for the HEDC. So do I have a motion for discussion and action?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All right. So I guess Jeff, we'll start over there with you and on any discussion item you may have on it.
No, just that we, as presented,
Okay.
with the salary range that we discussed.
Marion, for the record, do we have to tell what that salary range is?
We said that we were going to.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So we should, Jeff, do you have a recommendation on that salary range?
75 to 90,000.
Okay. All right. Greg, anything to add onto that?
Not at the moment.
Melissa?
Same here.
No? John?
No, I move we post the job description as written and with the salary range that we discussed.
No? Somebody already moved before you, but that's okay. I know where you stand when the vote comes. Okay. Joel?
No, I mean, we had some discussion about both the job qualifications and obviously the salary range. Thank you, John, for putting a lot of that information together as far as the job qualifications and tweaking it to what we would be looking for our executive director. So appreciate those efforts that you did there.
Yes.
We didn't have any edits, so we, obviously it was worked on together with multiple people, have already reviewed that, so I agree.
Okay, very good. And that's really the only thing I have to add is I just want to appreciate everybody's, again, I think we had very good discussions back in there, and it seems like our efforts are really coming to fruition. And I feel also that the salary range is appropriate. So with that, we have a
I
motion.
do have one other question.
Sure.
Are we going to keep it at 25 pounds?
Yes, we're keeping it at 25 pounds, just to make sure if anybody out there may have some inability to lift heavier weights, and just to keep it open as possible. Okay, so we have a motion for approval. So with that, I will go ahead and take a vote. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and motion passes. All right, with that, that brings us to the end of all of our individual consideration items. So with that, it is 9:33, 8:33, sorry, and we are adjourned.
Good work, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.